Hello, Shelley from Spin Cushions here. Today I'm going to show you how to make this square from my Siren's Atlas collection called Pechora. It's got some interesting features, but it's pretty easy once you figure out what you're doing. Fairly simple repeat. So I'm going to make mine in a single colour. I'll let you know if you need to do anything different if you're changing colours at the end of each round. So I'm going to start with a magic circle. You can start with a magic circle or chain 3 or 4 joined into a loop, or however you prefer to start. Excuse me. Alright, now the first thing we do is chain 3 starting chain or a false stitch, as I like to do. Oops. Usually better than that. Right. Then we're going to do excuse me, 3 trebles UK, doubles US. One, 2, 3. Then we're going to chain 2. And do 4 stitches, 4 trebles UK, doubles US. So we're going to do that until we have 16 stitches in total and 4 2 chain spaces. So I will do that and show you what happens next. Okay, I have 4 groups of 4 stitches. If you're changing colours, chain 2 and join with a slip stitch to your first stitch. And close my magic circle. If you're not changing colours, chain 1. Then if you're not used to the way I do things, pop a little scrap of yarn in the gap before you close off, and we're going to join with a double crochet UK terms or single crochet US terms to our first stitch instead of chaining 2 and doing a slip stitch. Okay, so what that does is it puts us as if we're in the middle of the 2 chain space. That stitch takes the place of the second chain and we're in the right spot. We don't need to slip stitch anywhere to get to the right place. Alright, next round has some interesting things. We're going to chain 3 starting chain or a false stitch. Then we're going to do a stitch over the joining stitch, a treble UK, a double US, and that is where that stitch marker is. So over that stitch we joined with, into the gap, we're doing a stitch. Right, then we're going to chain 2, and the next instruction is a point cluster. Now it's a 4 stitch cluster. So we're going to crochet these 4 stitches together, but the first one and the last one we're going to start as front post stitches. So yarn over, insert your yarn around the post of the first one, stop at that point, then start in the next stitch, stop at that point, start in the next stitch, stop there, and then the last one we do as a front post stitch. And then we're going to yarn over and pull through all of those loops on the hook. So there we have it, a point cluster. We're going to do lots of those in this block. Then we're going to chain 2, and our corner this time in the 2 chain space is 2 stitches, chain 2, 2 stitches. 1, 2, chain 2, and 2 stitches. One, 2. Right, so that's our corner. Our side is chain 2, point cluster, chain 2. So I will do that all the way around and show you what's next. Okay, so I've done my last point cluster for this round. Just need to chain 2 and do 2 stitches in the same place as our first stitches, which is where that stitch marker is. So I'm sure you can see it easily, but I just like to do that stitch marker unless it's a good idea to do it if you're not familiar with joining with a stitch instead of a slip stitch. So again, chain 2, join with a slip stitch if you are changing colours. If not, chain 1. Oops, I dropped it. Slip your little stitch marker in and join with a double crochet UK, single crochet US to your first stitch. Alright, next round, chain 3 starting chain or a false stitch, then a treble UKWS over the joining stitch where that stitch marker is. Then we're going to do a stitch in the next 2 stitches, trebles UK to doubles US. Oops. Then we're going to chain 2, skip the 2 chain space and do a front post stitch, treble UKWS around that point cluster. That's going to give us a nice point. And we're going to chain 2, skip the 2 chain space, stitch in the next 2 stitches, and our corner is 2 stitches, chain 2, 2 stitches again. So all trebles UK, doubles US all the way around, just with that one front post stitch in the middle. And there you have it. That's our side and our corner. I'll do that around and show you what happens next. Alright, I've done all my repeats. I just need to do 2 stitches in the same place as our first stitch, which is where that stitch marker is. If you're changing colours, change 2, join with a slip stitch to your first stitch. If you're not, chain 1, keep using a stitch marker if you want, I'm not going to anymore. Join with a double crochet UK, single crochet US to your first stitch if you can find it. Do that one a bit loose. Alright, now we're going to be doing more point clusters and front post stitches again. This round we're going to chain 3 starting chain or a false stitch, treble over the joining stitch, stitch over the joining stitch. Now we're going to chain 1 this time and do a point cluster over the next 4 stitches. Then we're going to chain 2, do a front post stitch around that front post stitch, chain 2, another point cluster, and chain 1 is the end, last stitch of the side, and our corner is the same as what they have been before. 2 stitches, 2 chain, 2 stitches. Two, chain, 2 and 2 stitches. So all trebles UK, doubles US. There you have it, our corner and our side. I'll do that around and show you what's next. Okay, repeats are done. I just need to do 2 stitches in the same place as my first stitch, stitches. Chain 2, join with a slip stitch if you're changing colours, or if you're not, chain 1 and join with a double crochet UK, single crochet US. Oops. Alright, so we're going to follow that pattern for a while now. We're going to do our front post round, 4 stitches, and then our cluster round. So this one, our corners are exactly the same, so it's chain 3 starting chain or false stitch, stitch over the joining stitch, a treble UK WS in the next 2 stitches, we're going to chain 1, skip the 1 chain space and do a front post stitch around that point cluster, chain 2, front post stitch around that middle stitch, chain 2, front post stitch around the point cluster, chain 1, skip the 1 chain space and a stitch in the next 2 stitches. And then our corner is the same as it's been before, 2 stitches, 2 chain, 2 stitches. So I will do all of that and I will show you what it looks like at the end. Okay, I've nearly finished, just I need to do my 2 stitches in the same place as the first 2 stitches. Changing colours, chain 2, join with a slip stitch, not changing colours, chain 1, join with a double crochet UK, single crochet US. Alright, another point cluster round, our last point cluster round. We're going to chain 3, starting chain or false stitch, a treble UK WS over the joining stitch, chain 1, point cluster, then we're going to chain 2, skip the 2 chain space, front post stitch. We're doing that a little bit. Another chain 2, another front post stitch, another chain 2, another front post stitch, another chain 2, and a point cluster. Then chain 1 and our corner, 2 stitches, 2 chain, 2 stitches yet again. So I will do that and show you how to finish off this round and get on with the next one. Okay, I've done my repeats, I've chained 1, I just need to do 2 stitches in that same place as the first stitches. Chain 2, join with a slip stitch if you're changing colours, if you're not, chain 1, join with a double crochet UK, single crochet US. Alright, second last round to go. We're going to do chain 3 starting chain, then a stitch over the joining stitch, exactly the same as what we've been doing before. We're going to do a stitch in the next 2 stitches, trebles UK, doubles US. We're going to chain 1, skip the 1 chain space, and do a front post stitch around the next stitch. Then we're going to chain 2, skip the 2 chain space, and do that all the way along till you get to the last point cluster. Chain 2, front post, chain 2, front post, chain 2, front post around here, and we chain 1, a stitch in the next 2 stitches, and our corner as usual, 2 stitches, 2 chain, 2 stitches. So I'll do all of that and then I'll show you how to do our last round. Alright, repeats done, just need to do 2 stitches as we have before. Chain 2, join with a slip stitch if you're changing colours, if not, chain 1, join with a double crochet UK, single crochet US. And we are almost done, last round, and it's all made up of double crochets UK, single crochets US. Start with 1 over the joining stitch, then we're going to do 1 in the next 4 stitches, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 in the 1 chain space, 1 in the next stitch, then 2 in the 2 chain space, 1 in the next stitch. So we're doing a stitch in every stitch, 2 in every 2 chain space, and 1 in every 1 chain space. And our corners are 1 stitch, 2 chain, 1 stitch, all double crochets UK, single crochets US. So I'm sure you don't need to see me do all of that, so I will work my way all the way around and show you at the very end. Alright, repeat's done. I just need to do a stitch in the same place as our first one, and it's just the last round. I am going to chain 2 and join with a slip stitch to my first stitch. Possibly. There we go. Right. So there we have it. Pechora, because it's the lacy nature and the post stitches, it will benefit from some blocking. Now, you'll notice that this one is a lot smaller than this one, because in this version I actually did an extra round of the point clusters, which makes it a little bit bigger. So if you're wanting to make it yours bigger, you can do another round of point clusters and then just do the double crochet round. It's really up to you. Your pattern is as this one, but if you want to make it a little bit bigger, that's how you would go about it. So there you go, Pechora from my Siren's Atlas collection. Thank you so much, and I'll see you soon. Oh, don't forget to check out spincushions.com for some more crochet fun. Thanks. Bye.